Hi, everybody. Welcome to Drag Racing's Golden Era. My name is Randy. I'm the editor-in-chief here. We're really glad that you're here, as always. Tonight we bring you part one of a two-part interview series with Steve Reyes. Steve is responsible for some of the coolest pictures ever taken in drag racing. Now, Steve didn't just photograph drag racing. He was into sports and all kinds of stuff, personal photographs. There's a couple that I saw of Andy Gibbs, some Alice Cooper shots. We'll show them in the second part of the interview. But we're mainly focused on his time as a drag racing photographer and his publication in various media, mainly the hot rodding magazines of the 70s, 60s. But what we find out here throughout this interview is that being a photographer puts you in a unique position to see and hear a lot of really neat stuff that went on at the drag strip. I have to say, out of all the interviews that I've done, this is probably the most amusing interview I've ever done. It was awesome to do this with Steve, and I want to thank him for taking the time to let us pick his brain a little bit here and talk about some of these outstanding photos. So we get on with the interview. This interview was recorded a couple of weeks ago. We always have a little bit of a delay before we put them up. There are some photographs in here that we show that are not Steve Reyes photographs, and of course those copyrights, we don't own the copyrights to those pictures. But you'll definitely know the Steve Reyes pictures when they come up. I enjoyed talking with Steve about my hometown track here of Great Lakes Dragway. He spent a bunch of time down there, and I've seen a lot of pictures that he took from down there, and I'm sure I was sitting in the stands while he was down on the starting line taking those pictures. So it's a real thrill for me to have Steve Reyes join us tonight. So let's get on with the interview. Thank you for being here, as always. It's my pleasure now to welcome Steve Reyes to the program. Hi, Steve. We're really glad that you're with us today.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a real thrill to be able to talk to you today. All the pictures that all of us have seen over the years, and we have about 75,000 people that are on the Facebook page, and these pictures are coming by, and it's great photography. So I guess, for me, the first question I want to ask you is, where did this all start for you? Did you just show up at a race one day and start photographing? How did this all start for you?
Actually, I was probably about 12 years old, and picking up a Carcraft magazine now and then and looking at all the really cool cars. And I got interested in Ed Roth's Big Daddy, Ed Roth drawings of monsters and race cars. And I kind of tried to do that myself. And Stanley Mouse out of Michigan, same style with the monsters and everything. It's like, well, maybe I had to try to see some of these cars in person. Well, being a kid, I think it was like actually probably 13, 14 at the time when I was really gotten into these cars. Was we had the Oakland Roadster Show. I'm from Oakland, California, so we had the big Grand National Roadster Show, which had all types of cars, dragsters, whatever. And Ed Roth would be there with his crazy, the crazy car of the month for him. And so having no money, I would just take the bus down there the last night of the show. And the last night of the Oakland Roadster Show, they opened the back doors to the Oakland Auditorium for everybody you have to drive out. It's mandatory. You have to drive, unless obviously if you're a dragster, whatever, they tow you out. But I would sneak in and I'd do my own little tour of the show. And then I'd try to find Roth and I'd talk to him. And, I'm just this goofy kid, and here's Roth, he's getting his stuff all packed up, and I'm trying to, talk to him about his drawings. He was really nice to me, but then, okay, well, that was my deal as far as the car shows and stuff. But the drag racing essentially was, I spotted an ad in the Oakland Tribune. My dad was reading the Oakland Tribune, and there was this ad, come see the 200-mile-an-hour nitro burning dragsters, the land missiles. These are really cool, Fremont drag strip. So I'm like, whoa, this sounds pretty cool. And I begged my dad, and my dad's like, nah. Yeah, you got to mow the lawn, you got to paint the house, you got whatever, wash the car, whatever, and I'll take you. So I did everything that he said, and sure enough, he took me there, and it's like, whoa, this is like another world. the smell of the nitro, the tires, the smoke, the whole aura of the place. Plus these cars were freaking cool, right? It was, smoking the tires all the way down the track. And then you had the gas coupes and the roadsters, and it was like nirvana for me. So I figured, well, I gotta capture this stuff on film. I gotta get shoot photos. So, armed with my dad's 620 Brownie and and an Umig movie camera, I was going to be the next, Ansel Adams or George Lucas or whatever, right? But I learned very quickly that you need a little bit better stuff, and plus, getting on the starting line at the drag strip is not the easiest process in the world when you're a stupid kid, right?
Yeah.
But my dad went and talked to Ron Lawrence, the track manager at Fremont, and he said that I was going to shoot some film for a car club or whatever. He bullshitted what he did, So Ron Lawrence calls me over, and Ron Lawrence gave me the only advice that I ever really listened to as far as being out there to shoot. He looks at me, he says, "Kid, don't get run over." That was it. Words of wisdom.
Yeah.
And I maintained that in my head the rest of my whole career. It's like, this is what Ron Lawrence told me, and this is what I shouldn't do. And it was interesting getting my first 35 millimeter camera and getting to know some of the racers and et cetera, because you just can't just jump in there 2 feet, and just bonsai. You got to learn the whole deal. And learning the composition, you learn I'm going to do my own black and white film. I'm going to do, shoot maybe a little bit of color if I can afford it. And then for me, it was getting to the racetrack, because we lived in Oakland. Fremont is like 25 miles away. So I had to figure out how to get there. I can have the tools of the trade, but if I can't get there, but it worked out where I ended up getting a motorcycle and strap my camera on the back and bonsai.
So what time period are we talking about here? What year would this have been?
Well, we're talking 64.
Okay.
65, 64, and 63 is when I first went out there, but I was just a Dumbo spectator, right? And I only went out there a couple times, but 64, I really wanted to continually go out there. I think Jack Williams was the world champion with the Crosley, Williams, and Swan car, and I went and saw him out there, him win the points race, but I was just in the stands, and then I decided I had to do something as far as photo wise, and I guess you'd say the rest is kind of history. I guess I just I got to know the guys that were shooting out there, very talented guys who were out there. They kind of like who's a stupid kid, but because I wasn't afraid to ask questions. Yeah. And that's the key is information. And a couple of them were like, "Go away, kid, you bother me." And a couple other guys were, "Hey, yeah, you could do this, do that." And that's how I learned how to shoot black and white at night, how to use a strobe, how to push film, all the basics and little techniques. And then, of course, studying drag news, National Dragster, Drag Sport Illustrated, studying other people's work, like Jim Kelly or, say, a Leslie Lovett, Jerry Mason, Harry Walker, the Welch brothers, et cetera, Mike Mitchell, Tim Marshall, the kid photographers from LA. There was a whole group of those guys that would come up and work at, work races at Fremont, and we'd all hang out together because we were all the same age. And, it just, all we talk is race cars and girls.
That's a good subject to talk. So you're actually in here now. I mean, you're really in the formative years of Top Fuel. I mean, this is early on, and Top Fuel is really advancing quickly as a sport.
Yeah. They had just switched from the old, excuse me, the Nitro ban had been lifted in 63, and also coming about where they had gotten rid of the weed cutter headers, and everybody was starting to run the Zoomy header, so that it kind of like, the tires were getting better, everything was getting faster, quicker, and it was if you had a brother or a neighbor, you ran a Top Fuel car. It seemed like in especially in Southern California. In Northern California, if you had a small speed shop or garage, then you went Top Fuel racing, or you had a fuel roadster. That was that was like mandatory.
Well, so, Nate, the really cool thing about this, Aaron, we have a lot of young viewers out here that don't know this about drag racing back then. OCIR, Lions, they used to put on these events where there'd be 32 car fields or 64 car fields. It was just an incredible thing to see.
Oh, it just Bakersfield, of course, always had their smokers event. But I went 1966. I went to the Mickey Thompson 200-mile-an-hour club event, which was the second one in the series. The first one was at Fontana, but the second one, I made the second one by taking a Greyhound bus from the Bay Area there all the way to wonderful Long Beach, but that's a whole nother story. But anyway, there was like, I'd never seen that many fuel cars, and it was just incredible. It was just one after another, pairs and pairs and pairs and pairs. And then the fuel cars, needed a rest, so to speak. Then they brought out the top gas cars. Okay, the top gas cars are running and running and running and running. And okay, the top gas cars, they need a little, a little rest. Well, let's bring the junior fuel cars out. Okay, time for Top Fuel again. Okay, blah, 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 blah. And that's it. That's all I had. It was just, the whole area was just this big cloud of tire smoke and nitro fumes. In Lyons was, I'll tell you what, Lyons is one of those places, if you never went, it's a shame, because it was, if you're a real motorhead and never went to the beach, that place was something else. And it's like most of these racetracks, they had a smell. They had their, like Lyons was located with oil wells and I guess refineries were right around there. So you had that sulfur smell, right? You'd get there and you have the sulfur smell. But in the behind the photographers area at Lyons on the one side was their major concession where they popped all the popcorn. So you had a mixture of sulfur and popcorn the whole evening, and then the dew would come in, because you're close to the ocean, and it was just something else. Every track that I ever went to had an odor. It just was. You knew you were, like at Irwindale, In-N-Out hamburgers. They were the concession there, and they had smog there, because all the smog would blow from LA. So you had smog mixed with that. And then Half Moon Bay was the Pacific Ocean, because they're right next to the ocean. But you get the drift. It was just everything had a character to it. But Lyons was something else. That was, for me, that was Mecca, Nirvana, however you want to put it. That was the place for me.
It's one of those drag strips that I've read all the lore about it, all the articles and history I could ever get my hands on about it. Unfortunately, Lions closed December 2nd, 1972. I was only 5 years old at that time, so I never even got to see it. I never even knew about Lions until after it was closed. It's one of the regrets I have, is that I was never able to be at that track.
It just it was so, the way it was set up, the people were, it was just like being in I guess the Colosseum in Rome, and having Top Fuel dragsters as gladiators, and you'd have all the Romans in the stands. But it was at night, the place just turned into a whole different, with the lights and the smells and the dew on the track. The guys running Top Fuel dragsters, and it's dewy on the track. It's wet, and these guys are just smoking down the racetrack side by side, and it's just something else. Nothing like it.
I've had the great fortune to I've interviewed Larry Sutton, and of course, he talked about Lions. And I just got done last week. I spent 4.5 hours interviewing Carl Olson. So I guess since we're on the subject of Lions, let's talk about it. That last race at Lions, you had a little bit different take than Carl Olson did sitting in the driver's seat.
Yeah, well, Carl, he took everybody to the woodshed that night, which is very cool. I mean, I've known Carl for 50 plus years, and he used to drag my butt to different races when I didn't have a ride, and when he was running his hooligan, his injected car, and then when he started to drive for Jack Ewell. But I just, from my standpoint, it was too much of a zoo for me. We'd have somebody guard our camera gear because the spectators were coming down. They were grabbing everything for souvenirs, and when you have a couple $1,000 worth of camera gear sitting there, you didn't want to disappear and end up on somebody's shelf as I got my Lion souvenir. Yeah, the photographer's camera. So no, it was just I thought it was just too. In the evening, it just got too crazy. During the day, I didn't mind. I mean, it was a Lions thing for me, and except it was it was two things. I don't know whether you realize this, but it was the last drag race at Lions, and it was also Linda Vaughn's wedding day.
Billy Tidwell?
When she got married to Billy Tidwell. So there were a lot of hard feelings there because there was a lot of racers that were invited to her wedding, and they opted to go to Lions instead. So there was a little friction there between Linda and a lot.
I did not know that. I have never heard that before.
Yeah, it was quite interesting because a lot of people you thought would be at her wedding, you see them wandering around at the races, and they had no inclination about going to any wedding that day. I mean, Lions was the priority, and I guess she wouldn't change the date of her wedding,
Okay, I just got to say, bad decision, because I wouldn't have missed the last race at Lions for anything either.
Well, there was a lot of folks that, that was their deal was going to Lions that particular Saturday night. And, I missed the place, for quite a while. And then I guess, I found other racetracks and other venues that I enjoyed. But, Lions just had that aura. It was the last drag race, like I said, for me was kind of wacky in as far as the photo area where we were all situated. And I felt bad that Jim Kelly was the guy that was covering the event for Lions, and Kelly was up on a 12-foot ladder, and there were spectators trying to get up on the ladder with him. And we were pulling these people off of the ladder, and I was happy to see Carl win. Jeb Allen's a friend of mine too, but it was because I know Carl really started his Top Fuel career at the beach, and just like McEwen winning Funny Car. I mean, that was like McEwen's home track, and he he deserved to at least beat the Snake once in his career. I mean,
that in 1978 U.S. Nationals.
Yeah, I was there on that. That was a sad and happy occasion. But
are you the one that took the iconic photograph of the starting line launch?
I don't know if I did or not, because I don't have that film anymore. I was shooting for Argus Publishers, and I shot that race. I was there, but I did not. Unfortunately, I had to leave the film there when I left Argus. So, and they pretty much lost everything anyway. But when I left, their archives left when I left, pretty much.
Wow. There's a picture, and I have not been able to figure out whose photograph this is. And I talked with Carl about this because I sent him this picture because he said he didn't have it. It's a shot. I thought it was the final, but he identified the picture as not being the final because they had a broken wing strut in the final. He said he was in the left lane for the semifinal and the final against Jeb Allen, but this was a semifinal picture of a launch at Lions. It's a low down picture. down behind the rear tire, and it's a color picture. And we've
Yeah,
never been
Paul
able to
Sadler
identify.
shot it.
What's that?
Paul Sadler shot that.
Paul, I'm going to write that down because we've never been able to identify who shot that picture.
Paul Sadler.
Okay. I'm just going to write that down quick
No
so I don't ever forget that, because we need to credit that. But it's a great picture. But anyway, to keep moving forward here. So you ended up being the Division 7 photographer for the NHRA. Is that correct?
Yeah, for a couple of years, I did, I think it was 69 and 70. I worked with Bernie Partridge in the, this Division 7 gang. That was an interesting deal because I had to go to Utah and, down south and Northern California and Carlsbad and, all the racetracks, Division 7. And prior to that, I was having problems with getting into Irwindale. Mel Rec would just bust my balls every time I wanted to come and shoot photos, even though I was having quite a few photos published in Drag News and National Dragster or whatever. But they used to really hammer on me to, well, we want some photos from you. We want free photos from you. Okay, well. So I'd hand them free photos. I'd give them 6 photos of the junkiest, crappiest looking stock cars running at Irwindale, because they never said what class they wanted. So, yeah, well, we can't use these. Well, you said you wanted race photos, and these are cars, and they're racing at Irwindale. Well, we want dragsters. So I gave them 5 or 6 photos of dragsters, and you know what? I forgot to put a real good fix on them when I did the print. So probably after a couple hours after I gave them to them, they kind of faded probably to white sheets of paper. But all that changed.
Steve Gibbs is probably watching this right now. You do know that.
No, Gibbs is my pal, so that's no problem. But Mel Rec it was Mel Rec and the Hispanic dude that ran the council member, the guy with the spiked enchiladas. You ever heard that story? But
No, please do tell.
Well, I can't remember his name right now. It's a Hispanic guy that him and Mel Rec, they ran Irwindale, and he was I believe a councilman in that area. And these guys, some guys wanted to vote something in so they could you make a lot of money or something. And so he didn't want to deal with these guys. He refused to take bribes. I mean, he was a stand-up guy. I mean, he just didn't want to, he didn't want to do that. So they invited him out to dinner one night to talk about this deal, right? So they spiked his enchiladas, and he roofied his enchiladas, right? So they take him out, carry him out of the restaurant under the pretense that he's drunk, right? He passed out. So they take him to the local hotel, and they get in a couple of skanky looking hookers, and they take all his clothes off. They, all the girls take all their clothes off. So they shoot a bunch of photos of him with these girls because they want his vote, right? So, of course, he, wakes up in this hotel room, the next morning or whatever, and, then they get a hold of him and say, we got photos of you, we're going to, go ahead. He picks up the phone, calls the police, has them arrested for trying to extort him. And that was the spiked enchilada.
That's a great, you never know what stories you're going to hear in the drag racing world.
Yeah, there's some really good ones, but yeah, that was one of the funnier ones from Irwindale. But as soon as I became a Division 7 guy, photographer, Mel Rec, they never bothered me again. I got in trouble one time for flipping off the crowd flipping them off at the tower during the race. But that was, yeah, there was letters written about that to Drag Racing Magazine and stuff because, they had a big oil down, okay? And so I sat on the guardrail. I mean, I've been standing for, 4 or 5 hours or whatever shooting cars. So Mel Rec gets on the PA and he starts hammering on me for sitting on the guardrail during a oil down. So I flipped him off. The crowd, most of the crowd loved it. They got a pretty good cheer out of that. But yeah, then Drag Racing Magazine got letters, how crude or rude or whatever. It's like, hey, I'd been standing up, and it was like towards the end of the evening, and I was tired, and why was the guy hammering on me? Because I was the biggest guy out there. I don't know. I didn't understand what the deal was, but and I went and apologized to him, after the race, but letters were written, and Mike Doherty, who was the editor of publisher of Drag Racing Magazine, he was humored by it. He laughed at him. He's like, okay, whatever, Mike.
Did you ever figure out what their problem was with you out there? Why were the guys at Irwindale so on you all the time?
Well, I guess Rec, he had a case of the ass. I don't know what the deal was. I never made a pass at his daughter. She had I'm trying to remember her name. She ended up being a Hurstette, Linda Vaughn, but nice lady. I never never said anything to her. It's like, but for some reason, Mel, we didn't. I don't know.
Just didn't see eye to eye, huh?
Maybe he didn't like the faded photos. I don't know.
That could be. So when you're a division photographer like that, where do most of those pictures go to? Do they get sold to publications, or they go to National Dragster, or where do they end up?
National Dragster was my main concern, and I usually wrote the story that went with the photos. I had to have them in the office a certain day, and if I shot like color film, besides that was my stuff. But I owned all the negatives anyway, but I was required to. There was a set of photos gone to Drag News, and the set that went to National Dragster. And if Bernie Partridge called me up and said, okay, well, I could use a couple of photos of Danny Ungaius or whoever was, the California Charger or Dennis Baca or whatever, to promote the next event or whatever, and I'd print them up a couple, extras or whatever, and move on. But that's the way the whole Division 7 guy, you work. And then you had credentials to go to each track, no problem. You just showed up. Hi, I'm so-and-so. Okay, here's your credentials. And you could go to an NHRA national event like Indy or Columbus or, whatever. If they had 4 events that year or 6 events or whatever, you could go and just say, you could basically, what you do is you would go through your division director, tell Partridge that you're going to attend Indy, and then you would be put on the photographers list as representing Division 7. So all the division guys usually were there. All the different division photographers would show up, and we carouse or whatever. But yeah, that was the deal. I mean, and I think I did that for 2 or 3 years, something like that. But the problem with being a division photographer, you're anchored. You gotta be there unless you find somebody else that would, that's reliable. And I had to do that a couple of times, but basically if I say I'm going to be there, I was there. Yeah. That's the main thing in this whole deal. You tell racers, you tell track managers, you tell sponsors, you're going to be there to shoot photos. You be there to shoot photos. And that's one thing I always, that was my credo right there, to be there.
So you mentioned Argus Publishing. How many magazines did they have underneath their roof? What was all involved in that?
Well, when I went to work for them in latter part, it was like November of '73, they probably had anywhere from, I want to say 10 to maybe 14 titles, different titles, because they would bring in like one-shot books, like a yearbook, a drag racing yearbook, or a one-shot on, Camaros or Mustangs or, vans. I shot CB radios. I did motocross, speedway bikes, flat track motorcycles, street machines, street rods, a whole gamut of stuff for them. And I guess they liked my stuff because as far as I know, I'm the only drag racing photographer that had his own magazine. They did in 1973, before I went to work for him, they did a magazine. It was called Hot Rodding in Color, which, you know, I think it was that Hot Rodding in Color. Anyway, it was the whole magazine was mine, everything, which I thought was pretty cool. And I didn't know anybody else has ever had that, you know, that honor, so to speak, with the publishing house doing just a magazine. It was just a special, you know, special magazine. And but yeah, Argus was it was crazy doing all that stuff because I was the only shooter.
Well, when I was doing my research on you, what I came across was that in 1973, for 1 month in 73, you had 7 of 11 cover shots.
Mm-hmm.
And that was with Argus's publications?
No, I was still freelancing at that time.
Okay.
So that was all different, you know, like Drag Racing Magazine, Popular Hot Rodding Magazine, Cars Magazine, and then Cars Magazine had their whole like 5, 6 other racing or car-oriented magazines. There was Popular Cycling. I had Peterson. I believe Peterson had a one shot. I think I had the cover on. It came out to 7. There was 11 magazines, automotive magazines on the newsstand at once, and 7 of the covers were mine.
That's incredible.
That was pretty cool.
That's incredible.
They all hit at the right time. I mean, you know, like, I mean, it's just the luck of the draw, so to speak. You know, the editor likes your photo, but I'll tell you a little secret. The editor doesn't have the final say. Okay, the publisher doesn't have the final say. You know who has the final say doing the magazines, at least back then, was your art director. Oh. Now, you sit down, you go in and you sit down with the art director and you ask the art director, what do you like? How do you like the composition? How do you like the composition for your center spreads? How do you like the composition for your cover? Well, how much room do you need? Because most of the art directors hated tight photos. In other words, just all car, right? There was nothing to work with. And, you know, like you did the cropping, you know, when you're shooting the photo. No, if you listen to what they tell you and you bring in, you know, oh, this is really cool. You know, there's a lot of extra room for, you know, you got to drop in the caption or blurb, whatever. And that's kind of like, I worked with a lot of the art directors. So, I mean, there was a lot of photos that were better than mine, but they would use mine because they could work with them. They could play with them. They could, you know, drop stuff in, da-da-da-da-da. So that's kind of like one of the little secrets you kind of keep to yourself. You don't run around telling all the other photographers, well, you know, you got to do this. And, you know, so.
But, there's a picture here, and we're going to put this up over the top of this so everybody can see it. What's the story on this car? I mean, it looks like it's cut in half.
Oh, that's the Castronova.
Yeah, Phil Castronova driving the custom auto body car.
Yeah, well, the story is I'm up on top of they had a tower at the finish line at Indy, and this is where they ran race control from there, and the police were up in the top floor, et cetera, et cetera. But they let us shoot on the roof of this. And I was up there with another gentleman. It was only 2 of us at the time, which was kind of rare because usually a lot of what we call the vultures would migrate up to the top waiting for somebody to, you know, throw an engine out or catch on fire or do something stupid. So anyway, I'm up there with this gentleman, and we got to talking, and he really has no knowledge of drag racing. He was sent there. He's a Life magazine photographer. Okay, he's the true deal, right? He shoots for Life. He's not a stringer. He's one of their guys. So he asked me, he said, which car should I shoot? Because there's 2 cars getting ready, you know, staging. And I said, well, you want to shoot the car on the far side. And he just kind of smiled at me and he nodded, oh, thank you, because he had no clue. I mean, he just no clue. So the two cars leave the starting line. Okay, he's focused on the far side, and they're coming down, and the car on the near side shuts off, clicks off. Well, Castro, he's making a heck of a pass, right? He's pulling, he's coming down to there, and just all of a sudden that thing just shreds. I mean, just this kaboom, right? And the roof flies off, and you can see the roof, part of the roof's up in the air, and the body ended up coming off, but that's the photo I got. Okay, so Castro does his thing, the parts flying around, he's sliding around, hits the guardrail, da-da-da-da-da. He doesn't ever goes upside down, but he's okay. He walks away. The typical 1970s funny guard kaboomer, right? Just kaboom. And the life guy turns to me and he has this big grin on his face. And he just says, thanks, I got my coverage. He packed up his stuff and went out the gate. Next thing I know, I open up Life magazine, a couple of issues, whatever, and here's a 2-page spread of Phil Castronovo just annihilating the body on I thought I should have got credit, but yeah, I mean, it just ka-woofed the body. And in Life magazine, I think it's the only time they ever ran a funny car or a drag race car at the time. I mean, it was, how big Life magazine used to be. And, you open it up and boom, here's Phil. But he was, that's kind of like my deal. And, but the Life guy was very humored by that, by me over there. And, yeah, he packed up and went home after that.
Well, speaking of, there's so many photos here, and my mind is running on here with all these photos that I'm just happen to think of. And this reminds me of a photo that you shot, and I believe it was at Lions, where the body of that funny car must be 100 feet in the air.
Well, that was in 1971. That was at Fremont. That was at Fremont. That was Joe Winter in the Swinger One. Yeah, that was an interesting photo shoot right there.
I did, to me, that the incredible part about that photo is that you were pulled back far enough on that photo to actually capture not only the car on the ground, but that body way up in the air. It's just an awesome photo.
I shot that photo one-handed, this hand with the camera. I was all the way at the end of the track urinating. And that's true, very true. And we heard him coming. I was down there with a couple other guys. Were kind of standing off the side because they didn't want to get wet. And you hear him coming, and then the body just takes off. And I shot one with a horizontal format with the body coming off, and then I turned the camera in the body, and the body stayed in the frame, and here's the car, here's the body, and that's 2 frames was on my motor drive, my Nikon motor drive. But
so what are you saying? It sometimes it's just about luck, being in the right place at the right time.
It was always, and like I used to tell Les Lovett, at NHRA, I said, man, I said, because he's gotten hurt a couple, he got hurt a couple times. I said, I always felt that I had a guardian angel on me, on my shoulder, because I'll tell you what, some of the crap that bodies and pieces and blowers and and Lovett agreed with me, because we were in Indy in 1969 at the finish line, standing, because we're stupid, because you stand next to the guardrail. Yeah, we can get some really cool photos, right? And Doc Holliday comes through with a top fuel drag and blows the whole side out of the motor. Lovett gets hit by a block piece. I'm the biggest person standing out there. Nothing.
Wow.
And Lovett standing there rubbing his side or wherever he got hit, cussing at me because I didn't get hit.
Well, we did. I interviewed Mike Couch about the years that Buster Couch was a starter, and I also talked with Larry Sutton. And one of the things that I don't think a lot of people understand about being that close to the racing, especially at that point in time in racing when the safety probably wasn't as good as it should have been. I mean, Larry Sutton in particular got the hell beat out of him on the starting line with flying pieces. As a matter of fact, Carl Olson put a piece of a flywheel out of his car, and there's a picture taken of Larry Sutton flying through the air with a part of a flywheel in his side, broke his ribs.
Yeah.
So yeah, you are lucky that you never got hit. So go ahead.
No, they used to have, Lions had rollers, to fire the cars up, right? After they had a bad crash with the attic car came down and crashed into the upper build up there, when they used to push him down, the throttle stuck, and anyway, they installed the rollers, and there had been a couple people got hurt. Bobby Hightower, who also drove, he was helping one evening just hold the car on the rollers, and it kicked the side of the motor out and cut it. He almost lost his arm. He got his arm cut so bad. So it was up there on the starting line around Lions. And most of your racetracks is, it's not a pleasure trip to stand around there, because I mean, the clutches and you name it, the blocks blown out, they get hydraulic, guys forget to back the motors off, and it gets pretty wacky at the on the starting line, right?
Well, yeah. I'm looking at pictures here, and I'm seeing. So you did you sent me a picture of Kenny Bernstein, which we can't show on here, and I'm sure he wouldn't want out there anyway. But what I'm getting out of this is you did some work with either Budweiser or Kenny Bernstein at one point here for advertising. Is that what these photos are? Because you got the Clydesdales and everything here.
Well, Kenny called me. I was on the road, of course, and actually he called Argus, and he asked Argus if they'd be interested in running something with the Clydesdales. And I'm on the road, so they call me, they get a hold of me and say, well, can you go to Myrtle Beach and meet with Kenny? I said, sure, I'm not that far away. So I get in my trusty tour van and go and meet with Kenny. And he's in a hotel there with the mayor of Myrtle Beach. And he's pitching this deal with the mayor. And the mayor's like, yeah, it sounds really cool. Because evidently the Clydesdales were nearby, or the whole rig was coming through or whatever. So Kenny puts this deal together, and the mayor calls like the road crews or whatever for the city, and they come down, and one of the streets there goes right, dead ends at the beach. So they remove the guardrail and everything, that's blocking, and they plow like a way to get the horses and the race car, everything out onto the beach. And that's what we did. And essentially Kenny had called Sports Illustrated to possibly get a spread in Sports Illustrated on this shot with, on the beach with the Clydesdales and all that. And evidently Budweiser didn't buy enough ads that month or something, but they had my stuff for a while, and they didn't run anything, but we did in popular hot running. Kenny got a nice thing out of that, but that was all Kenny. That was I was just shooting for Argus, and but I've known Kenny for ages, and he let me shoot his Chelsea King funny car. I was hung out with another crazy person, Leroy Goldstein. Leroy was Kenny's crew chief on that car, and we did some wacky stuff with that, see-throughs and all this other crazy stuff with Goldstein. But yeah, I've known him for quite a while.
Well, and Kenny, as far as Kenny Bernstein goes, what the story you just told about him with the marketing and all that. I mean, Kenny was a genius when it came to that sort of thing. He really was. He was out front when it came to marketing and money and all of that.
He had some bigger sponsors come to him, and they wanted to put their name or logo on his car, and he's like, don't have room. I'm old, you know, this is Budweiser's deal, and you know, your pizza company or whatever, you know, whatever it was, you know, I'll get a hold of Perdome, or I'll get a hold of, you know, somebody that could use a sponsor right now. And that's what he would do. He would pass people on. Okay, this, you know, you want to sponsor this guy too, because this guy is a competitor and has a lot of, you know, fan following and everything, because he just couldn't, you know, he'd have to build another car to accommodate, you know, some of the sponsorships. But yeah, you're right. I mean, besides being obviously a genius at marketing, he's one heck of a racer too.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, with along with the marketing, and I know we're getting into drag racing territory here pretty heavy, but along with the marketing, you know, Dale Armstrong being able to afford that program that they put together in the wind tunnel program. And unfortunately, this is one of my beefs about it. What those guys did at that period of time kind of ended the era of the good looking funny car, if you ask me.
I mean, the Budweiser Batmobile.
Yeah, I mean, what an ugly ass car.
That's what we used to call it, the Budweiser Batmobile. And well, it took some talking by Kenny to get NHRA to approve that body. I know that was a lot of contention there, and it was a lot of sleepless nights, I think, for both parties on that one. Yeah.
Well, and I've always felt that once the Batmobile came out, it sort of pushed everybody away from the classic funny car that you could still identify as a funny car into a wedge.
Well, you want to talk classic funny cars? Dale Armstrong. You ever see Dale Armstrong's early rides and funny cars?
Yeah,
the Canuck.
Yeah.
You can't get any more basic early funny car than a topless Nova with the engine built by Frank Pendragon. I mean, you know, that's one of those deals when they fire the thing up. You know, they put an apple in the driver's mouth and say, "Here, hold this turkey. Make sure it gets done by the end of the run, because you know you're going to be on fire." It's the old funny car adage, right? You know, funny car driver is, you know, are you going to have a fire? No, it's when are you going to have a fire?
I didn't, you just, you know, this is what I love about what I do here. I learn all these little interconnections that I never knew. Flamin' Frank Pendragon and Dale Armstrong. I never knew that connection before.
Yeah, they used to trade off driving of this car, the Canuck, and you know, whoever could have the best fire, I guess, you know, got to sit out the following weekend or something. It was yeah. Well, you know, Frank he built funny car engines for Wendell Shipman in the Shipman's Cuda, and of course, you know, he ran his own top fuel car after the coupe, the Taco Taster coupe, the Flaming Frank tire deal. And
I just got some video of that car out at the Nitro Revival here this last November of actually Cruz Pendragon. Actually, I think Tony was there too at one point. Cruz and Tony were both there with Flamin' Frank's car. Started up. What a beautiful car. I was told that car never looked that good back in the day.
No, Pat Foster did a heck of a job. That was one of the last cars that he built before he passed. And the other car, I wish I could see that Pat built at as far as one of the last cars was the Surfers. He did a replica of the Surfers car, but I don't know whatever happened to it.
Well, hang on, because in about 6 months, I'm going to be doing video and doing an interview with the guys down here at my local track at Great Lakes Dragaway at Union Grove, Wisconsin. Here, they're going to have that reproduction car out there. They're going to do a little cackle fest. I think Paul Brown with Doug's Headers Corvair is going to be there. There's going to be a couple of guys there.
I know Paul. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I followed him around a little bit this last summer with that car. What a work of art that car is. Amazing.
He bought a few photos from me of the original of Doug running the original car, and I sent him a couple of photos of I had some nice headshots of Doug too at the SEMA show in 1971, and then at the Superstock reunion. Some nice stuff on him. Yeah, but yeah, I met him at in fact I met him at Gainesville. He had the car on display at Gainesville a few years ago. Union Grove, one of my favorite tracks. That was that's one of my favorite tracks on tour.
And you've got one of my favorite photos of all time from Great Lakes Dragway, and it's Broadway Bob Metzler sitting on the front of the Green Mamba with the beer in his hand. And I tell you what, that was something we all waited for every time he had a drag race down there. Was where's Broadway Bob with his beer?
Yeah, yeah, that's that photo. I actually sold that photo to a rock group who put it on their CD cover.
Really? Wow. Well, I grew up at Great Lakes Dragway, and the Olympics of drag racing, the IHRA races, the Summer Nationals, all the stuff that used to happen down there. And I mean, you were there. There was nothing fancy about that facility, but man, it was just such an awesome place to be.
I love that place. I like the uphill to the starting line. Yeah. I got some really cool photos. You get down low and it's just like, it's really, really a cool deal. And it just, I always had a good time there. I mean, Bob didn't know me from Adam when I first showed up there. And I introduced myself. He said, "Oh yeah, I see your photos and at Drag News or whatever." And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, I'd like to shoot at your track." And, "Oh, come on in. Yeah, you park your car over there. And yeah, here's some passes for a lunch, or come to the beer hall." And all. I mean, he was just, yeah, whatever you need, And it's like, I wish every promoter that I ever, or manager I ever dealt with was, as far as just that, exuberant and friendly and, let's do this, let's do that. And, yeah, go wherever you want, just be careful. Yeah, no problem. Hey, whatever. And
Broadway Bob was just a one-of-a-kind guy. And I don't think I ever saw the guy without a smile on his face. He was happy doing what he did.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I had the opportunity here. Something I've always wanted to do my entire life was stand between two jets running. So I got the video camera up on the shoulder, and we got up there in the starting line right behind Jim Gleason, the starter last spring. And well, I tell you, that's a hell of an experience. But you've got some pictures of jets that, unlike today's jets where they're using the small Westinghouse, or General Electric jets, there's some monsters that you took pictures of. That had to be a whole different ball game being next to one of them.
I'll tell you what, when like Arfons used to run his, I think it was a J79, the Super Cyclops.
Yeah.
The ground would shake. You would stand there and you could feel the ground would just be shaking. And he hadn't even run the thing. I mean, he hadn't even gone into burner. And it's he's just sitting there winding, and it's just like, whoa. I mean, this thing is like, whoo. And then he'd go into burner, and like the world would end. I mean, it was just like something else. And I'll tell you what we did one time at a Super Chevy in Green Valley. Now, Green Valley was one of my favorite tracks to shoot at also. Bill Helsher was just a really, really cool guy. We lined up 6 jets, okay? 6 jets, and had them all fire at the same time. I mean, you talk about insanity. There was 2 over by the spectator. I mean, they were like, right that close to each other, right? Excuse me. And then we had 2 in each lane of the drag strip, and then 2 on the return road. Yeah, there were 6 jets, and they all fired at the same time.
Wow.
They didn't run, but they just all fired and did a fire show.
Oh, man.
And I couldn't get a photo because I didn't have a lens wide enough, and it was at night. So, I could have got a photo of just, fire. That's all it would have been, but it was something else just to see. And that was something insanity that I think Richard Schroeder put that together.
Wow.
Schroeder, he wasn't right, but I only did that once. And Fontana ran 4 jets side by side.
Oh.
They actually ran them, and then the first 2 jets to ever run side by side was in 62 or 63 at Bakersfield. Was Romeo's Untouchable with Bob Smith driving, and Gablich driving the Nathan Autrish's what was that thing called? The Valkyrie. I think those were the first 2 jets ever run side by side.
I didn't know that. Yeah. What year was that? 62?
62 or 63, right in there. Well, Gablich was insane enough where he took the Valkyrie up into the Hollywood Hills because he had friends that lived up there and they'd never seen a jet. So they fired the jet up at night on the street in Hollywood Hills.
You know, there's a lot of story, and I talked to Bob Moravez, stories of people running dragsters down the street and all this. I'd always heard this rumor that he pulled the freight train out and ran it down Culver Boulevard, which he told me explicitly was not true. But my God, there's a lot of stories of guys doing that kind of thing.
Well, we ran fuel alders. I ran with Dave Huff. We ran in Redondo Beach, California. We tried to do a parachute shot down the street. Parachute fell off. He went through 2 stoplights over a hill and almost into the Pacific Ocean. That was an interesting day.
Oh God!
We had Bob Hankins in the Blue Blazer. I did a deal with a guy named Jim Monty, who was kind of like a gigolo and a promoter kind of guy, and he talks to the Great Western Bank or something on Sunset Boulevard, and so there's a fountain there. So he's okay, we're going to shoot a fuel altered at night running. And okay, so Hankins brings his car up there, parks a couple blocks away, right? And here's a fuel altered running down Sunset Boulevard. He's just cruising down looking for a way to get up onto and people are like jamming the brakes on their cars. Here's the Blue Blazer coming down Sunset Boulevard. He goes up, he finds a way up and he parks next to the thing, and I shoot photos for a nice photo.
There's a picture of the Winged Express, and I've heard different people say the Winged Express is off the left side of the track. It's in the grass. The picture is from the back side. And there's a guy standing right in front of the wing.
That was a Tremont. And the guy
is that you standing in front of it?
No, it's a friend of mine, Mike Bagnott. That was him. He did the smart thing. He didn't move. Willie just drove around him. Because Willie, I used to talk with Willie because he tried to run me over at least 3 or 4 times in his career. And he told me, he says, don't move. I'll drive around you. You run and I'll run over you because you're going to no doubt run. And so I told Mike that. I said, Willie gets off in the grass and, you'll, in the same photo, there's 2 guys running. Okay. Yeah. But Mike just stays there and Willie just drives around and back onto the track.
There's been a lot of commentary about that photo over the years. Man, that guy's got some balls standing in front of the Winged Express like that. But now that we know that, we know why he stood still.
Well, Mike wouldn't write anyway, but he's a good friend of mine. And I basically handed him a camera and said, this is the way you're going to do it. Because he liked drag racing and he wanted to get into shooting cars. So I just kind of like pointed in the right direction, and he got some pretty nice stuff. And but he almost got run over at Fremont doing the same thing, only down at the finish line. Paisano and Matsubara come through, and Sush got off the track, which was a regular thing for him. And he almost got Mike. Mike decided to move when he saw Sush, get on the grass because Sush was still under power, and he would just mowed him down. But Mike got out of his way in time, and Mike never stood there again though at the finish line like that.
Wow.
Mike took chances. That's the one thing I used to tell him: don't take the chances to do stuff like that. But
yeah. Well, I know with the time I've been spending, on the starting line, taking video, and I have a trust issue. I talked to Jerry Newman. We did a whole special on Doc Halliday and the Telstar and Jerry Newman.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
Jerry said to me, he goes, I trust my own tune-up from about 20 feet. That's how much I trust my own tune-up. I've never forgotten him telling me that.
Yeah, the guys used to tell me, like Frank Martinez, who was he drove Top Fuel and Junior Fuel there in NorCal. He used to tell me, he said, don't trust anybody. As far as, he says, we all want to win. We all want to get to the finish line the quickest, fastest guy, in the class or that day or whatever. He said, you don't want to turn your back on any of these cars, so to speak. And I took that to heart, and I talked to Frank Bradley. I used to hang out with Frank a little bit, and Frank's, I told Frank, I said, yeah, I told my friends that I shoot drag racing. And he says, oh, and the comment was, those guys in those cars are nuts. They're they risk their life, da, 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 da. And Bradley looks at me and says, we're not nuts. He looks at me and says, you're the one that's stupid. You're the one standing out there with a Hawaiian shirt on, jeans, and a camera in your hand. I'm sitting in a car with a fire suit, helmet, roll cage. I got all the protection. You're the one that's standing out there with what? Tennis shoes on, jeans, and and he says, you best be really good at running, because where I shot in Fremont, there was no guardrails. I don't know whether, a lot of people, have never went to drag racing in that time period, but there were no guardrails. It was all open, and you were fair game. If you didn't pay attention, and that was the key, is paying attention to these guys. I got to know most of these guys, how they drove. The guys that just, basically closed their eyes and hit the throttle and hope. And then, the guys that could do a 10-foot wheel stand and bring the car down, bring the wheels down, and just smoke it to the finish line. And, when you study these guys, then you get a little bit of trust going. But like Carl. I mean, Carl, heck of a driver, but it's one of those deals that I know when you get strapped into one of them cars, you could be a target.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you were taking photographs at some of the Southern California tracks in the heart of fuel altered history, right?
Those are my guys. I mean, those were the, man, I'll tell you what, those were something else. I was at Fremont the first day that Guasco debuted Pure Hell, and a gray Bantam body with the just the thing looked like it was just come out of a dumpster. But Fred Cerruti was the kind of tune-up driver for Guasco, and man, I saw him run, and when Cerruti ran his own car, the Quality Auto cars, man, these cars are, this is it. These are my guys. And a 98-inch wheelbase with a blown fuel, either a big block Chevy or a blown Chrysler in it. It's like 98%, high-ho silver, boy. You hang on, and it's the old. If there were guardrails, it'd be guardrail to guardrail.
Yeah.
They used to call it mechanized bullfighting.
It was. I mean, that era of fuel altered, short wheelbase, high sitting engines, the whole thing that went on those cars, and the absolutely famous photo of Wild Willie at Pomona at the Winter Nationals with that thing.
Photo. That's a classic.
The thing is sideways completely. I mean, he's looking right at the camera on the opposite side of the track. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Who took that photo?
I'm a clerk.
Okay.
That's one of them iconic. They got a really nice like a blow up poster of that thing in the museum, the NHRA museum, and that's one of the cool. I mean, I got my Willie photos, but nothing like that. I got him at Riverside in '68. I'm on the bridge shooting down, and he's running about 200. Got the front wheels off the ground; they're folded over, and he's reaching across, trying to pull the parachute at the same time, and he's hazing the tires coming through at the finish line. That's one of my Willie photos. And what was really cool about the whole deal is he's got the moon eyes decal, with on the fuel tank. Well, the moon eyes are pointing the same way as the front wheels are, and the front wheels are laid over, coming. You can see the clocks. You see the clocks sitting there. It's like, man, that was one heck of a run. But
and a lot of the people that follow us, the younger guys, they all say they wish they'd bring the fuel altered class back. But oh my God, I don't even know how you do that in modern NHRA safety rules. Those cars were just uncontrollable most of the time. And we interviewed Randy Bradford, with the Bradford family Fiat, and we interviewed Harry Burkhalter. And the thing about it is these guys are so laid back and such nice guys. I can't imagine them strapping themselves into these cars, but they did.
Oh, it's a shame you didn't get, Dale Emery. the drove, he drove pure hell.
Yeah.
Emery was almost, I talked to Dale, when I went on tour with Dale, when he drove a wheel stander, believe it or not. And he would tell me, he said, well, he's driving pure hell. They just put a blown Hemi in the car because they had, and this was in 1968. He says, well, when I come to the finish line, now watch the car. He said, if the windscreen is laying down on my hands, then I'm going over 200. He says, that's how I judge I'm going over 200. Okay, Dale. And sure enough, I got photos of him in Sacramento. In fact, I think it was a WCS race, Division 7. And he's smoking through there, and the windshield's laying on his hands. But Dale could have some stories driving the fuel all. He crashed at Fremont when they were trying a new steering. Guasco put a new steering, like a Pinto steering or something on the car, and it fell off. Okay. About half track that falls off, right? So the car veers off the side and flips upside down in a culvert that's full of water because it's been raining, right? Well, here's Dale upside down and he can't get out, right? So all emergency crews are coming, and Tony Del Rio was the painter, the guy that painted the car. He's probably about 6'5", 325, used to be a wrestler, painter, bodyguard, et cetera, et cetera. He's helping trying to upright the car. Well, they get the car uprighted, and they get Dale out of the car, and he's full of mud and everything. He's still got his helmet and everything. Well, the EMT guy is standing there. He's pulling on Dale's helmet to trying to get the helmet off, right? Well, he didn't undo the chin strap, so he's strangling. He's strangling Emery, right? So Del Rio's trying to get this guy's attention, right? And the EMT's not listening. So Del Rio, one punch, he knocks the EMT out and reaches over and undoes, Dale's helmet and takes the mask off, and now he can actually breathe now. But one punch. The EMT guy wouldn't listen to him. So that was the saga of being upside down in a culvert with a fuel oil.
But and I've seen that picture. There's the picture of the car upside down. Now I got the story to go with it. Yeah. That's awesome.
There's probably the EMTs laying on the ground behind the car or something, because it took about 5 minutes to revive this guy. Because, like I said, Del Rio, him and his brother Wayne took no prisoners back then, and nicest guys ever, but don't want to screw with them. And
I'm looking at this right now. You've got an awesome capture of Chris Karamessina sitting black and white, sitting in the car, smiling at the camera. I just love that picture.
Oh, the Greek, one of my idols, boy. I'll tell you what, he really cool guy. I spent a weekend with the Greek in Chicago. We did a photo shoot with when Strange had all the different cars. They sponsored the Alcohol Funny Car and the Chi-Town, and we got them all together and then did a photo with the Chicago skyline in the background. And I came in early and I hung out with the Greek, and man, he owns Chicago. That's his town, I'll tell you what. And he had his restaurant and everything, and just fun guy to hang out with. Just really cool people. And every time since then, I'd seen him at the races and come over and shake his hand and see how he's doing. And yeah, I miss going out to races. And he's one of the guys I really miss going out just to say hello. Because
what do you? I know this is going to be a tough question to ask, but what do you think your favorite drag racing picture would be that you've taken? Can you narrow it down to a picture or not?
A picture?
Yeah.
Well, every picture has a story to it.
Yeah.
Okay? And some are sad, some of them are happy. Most of them are happy. I mean, there's a couple that are I guess you'd say like people thought I was psychic, one of those deals. But it's really hard. If you want to categorize it, probably the photo that's sitting behind me right now would be one of my favorite fuel altered photos. That would be the Warlock.
Yeah.
At Fremont in the fuel altered wise. But Top Fuel rear motor car would be probably Bob Dumont throwing the engine out at me at Tulsa. That was an exciting photo shoot. And then, of course, Bowers, throwing his clutch out.
Yeah.
Funny car wise, boy, that would be hard. That would be, I mean, I've shot so much of that stuff. Clint Miller and the Mountain Monza, I mean, a rolling hibachi at Pomona. That was pretty wacky. And I don't think I sent that one to you, but
No.
yeah, just I don't know what to tell you as far as favorite. I think Dave McClellan asked me that in 2009 at the Hot Rod reunion, because I was inducted in their deal. And I just well, yeah, okay, yeah, McClellan sticks a microphone in my face and what's your favorite photo ever? Okay, well, yeah, my nude photos I shot at Uncle Pam. And he's like, huh, what? And,
hey, you didn't send me those pictures either. Where are them? I got to see them over here.
I promise, Pam. No,
I see you included the Larry Bowers picture from OCIR. That is just an absolutely incredible capture. Unbelievable.
One frame. That's all it was.
Really, you didn't have her going in motion.
Right? Yeah, it's just one frame. I had been on the hill down at Orange County, at the other on the spectator side, and I was called over during a break. They were like cleaning up oil or parts or something on the track, and I was called over to talk to a lady, of course, but and I got trapped on the one side. I couldn't get back over to the hill. So Bowers and whoever he was racing came down and said, okay, well, I'll get shoot a photo of Larry, and it'll be cool. And all of a sudden there was a big puff of black, dust and tinkling all around me with the parts and everything. And that was about it. I was very fortunate that none of those discs found me. They did find a poor guy that was walking through the pits, just, minding his own business, and put a big, one of the discs hit the pavement, put a whole, gap in the pavement, came up and sheared the poor guy's kneecap off.
Oh, geez.
I mean, he was, he wasn't going to be doing any line dancing that night. I tell you that
wow.
much. Yeah, I was very fortunate that, and I mean, there were parts, pieces, and it wasn't the first time I've had to dodge parts and pieces, but it's very eerie when it happens, because you hear all the parts and pieces hitting the guardrail behind you.
Huh.
And it's like, you're waiting for that, the part hitting or something. But I've been very fortunate that, yeah.
But I mean, this picture, I'm just looking at this thing and it's coming right at you. It's amazing that any of that stuff missed you.
Yeah, I was, like I said, it wasn't my first, excuse me, it wasn't my first clutch explosion, but that was one of the one of the closest ones that I'd had to dodge. And I made up by 3 foot by 4 foot blow up for the people at SEMA, and they used it as far as safety instructions and clutch can and look at this and look at that, and it helped probably keep clutches in cars down the road.
Well, the amazing part about this picture is not only are the clutch discs out of it, the scatter shield actually came out of it, which means the shaft is in pieces, which I'm assuming that's part of the pieces in the air there.
Oh yeah, and you notice there's a rod sticking through the bottom of the engine too. Yeah, there was a.
Sure enough, I never noticed that before.
Yeah, Larry kind of like when Larry did it, he did it good. I mean, he did. At Bakersfield on another afternoon, he threw the whole engine out at us. We were very fortunate the engine went to the inside of the track instead of the outside, because we were all on the outside. And that little venture was interesting, because I'm shooting photos and I bring my camera down to see what's going on because he was too close. And here's a flaming piston bouncing through the photo area where we were standing.
Oh, so,
it's like, okay.